Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I see the chat is buzzing. We have one game in the books. We got one big game tonight. We got college football. We are in the thick of things. And oh, by the way, NBA season starts in like 6 weeks. So, I mean, truly in the thick of the sports universe right now. Let's take a look at how we did yesterday on the recap screen. A lot of green, a lot of red. This is 6-6. So we lose some money on the juice here. Have some plus money plays that lost here as well. A plus 140 from the sniper. Padres lose that one at the very end. They were up 3-0. Sniper looked like he was going 2-0. Grand slam by the Detroit Tigers to win that. I lose my first half bet. Let's rebound. Let's do a little bit better today with our crew. Speaking of crews, programming note. Let's take a look at how we are doing things today. We've got the show right now, of course. The Early Edge NFL Player Prop Show is today at 5 p.m. And, of course, we have a primetime game. We have a primetime show. Packers, Eagles, Early Edge kickoff show tonight at 7:15. Cannot wait for that game. And, frankly, I cannot wait for this show. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday. We've got a heavy hitter lineup for BPE Friday. Oh my
yes,
God.
Sir!
Oh, Danny Brasco always has me feeling Rocky. Mike McClure always has me feeling the opposite because he's reading a novel. But it's Chip Patterson's day. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for your Chip Me Up?
Good morning, Sia. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Danny. Good morning, Jake. Good morning, Early Edge fam. Oh, buddy, this is the hair of the dog in college football because you got a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday, a Sunday, a Monday, and then here we go. We're back at it again. So you just got to jump back on the horse and you just got to ride. We got picks for Friday. We got picks for Saturday. We're locked, loaded, ready to go. Let's go.
I mean, should we just stop the show right there? Danny, we can't possibly.
No, because we got winners. We can't stop the show right now.
We got winners. Danny Brasco, we can't possibly do better than that, my friend.
Injected into my veins, Chip. It's NFL, it's UFC, it's fighting and football season. I am elated. I can't wait. See, I mean, the energy is electric everywhere you go in the sports universe, and we got a lot to talk about. NFL Brazil, obrigado, baby.
Wow. I don't know what that means, but it sounded awesome. DJ Fitz says, nobody matches Chip's energy. Mike McClure, I got to ask you, I know you were reading the book. You were probably reading the box scores from yesterday because your Chiefs win again. Your reaction to that game?
Love the game. Kansas City absolutely dominated that game. Probably should have won by a much bigger margin. Left a good 10 points on the field. But love to see Lamar with the ability to run. Was not impressed with that offensive line, though, and not impressed with Lamar as a quarterback, frankly, throwing the football down the field. So fired up to be here. I see a comment saying I hate Chip. I do not hate Chip. I love Chip. I drink decaf coffee on Fridays because of Chip. So, no, I'm absolutely fired up, ready to be here.
Oh, I just absolutely love Chip. Absolutely. You know, what's interesting about that game is your reaction, Mike, because Lamar knew he was going to get blitzed. I mean, that's always been, correct me if I'm wrong, the game plan from the Chiefs and Spagnuolo in particular. And I understand offensive line issues are offensive line issues and you can't block Chris Jones, but it just didn't feel like they were operating on all cylinders, kind of knowing what was coming.
Yeah, no, definitely. It really was just organizationally too. It wasn't necessarily individual players on the offensive line, just the team in general having to burn timeouts defensively too. They just came in and frankly looked like a team that was playing week 3 of the preseason and didn't look like they were quite ready for that primetime road environment, which, to be fair, it is difficult to win on the road in the NFL. Yeah. It's even more difficult in standalone primetime games like that against maybe the best quarterback ever. So yeah, it's very, very difficult spot. I think the Ravens are a really, really good team. Just like the AFC title game caught Mahomes on the wrong night.
Yeah, Rashee Rice was so good. Xavier Worthy in limited touches was so good. Imagine when Marquise Brown comes back, because he's a very good receiver as well. This offense is going to be tough to stop. All right, here's what we're going to do. I want to warn everybody. There's no way the Monday recap screen is going to look perfectly clean, because we actually, and this is rare, but we actually have picks that especially on tonight's game, I should say specifically on tonight's game, that are kind of controversial to each other. So we can go 2 out of 3 on those picks. We can't go 3 for 3. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to need your takes in the chat in terms of how you think this Friday night game is going to go. But Chip Patterson, NFL is not the only game in town. here's how we're doing Fridays. You're giving out a Friday pick, and then later in the show, you're giving out a couple of your favorite Saturday college football picks. So you get to start us off with some Friday Night Lights.
It's gonna be windy
in Evanston. We take you to the practice field in Evanston, Illinois, where they don't have a stadium. They just got a practice field with some bleachers on the side, and it's right by the lake. And what does that mean? Wind that's going to be coming right off that lake. We're talking 15 to 18 mile an hour crosswinds. And when you combine that with what we saw from Northwestern in terms of pace, in terms of tempo, I mean, we are talking about a Northwestern team that averaged 30.1 seconds per play across 61 plays. Among games between FBS competition, that is ranking near the bottom of the entire country. Northwestern's going slow. And I do think that while Duke has a quarterback in Malik Murphy who maybe has a high ceiling, that offense against Elon was not yet clicking. Duke does play a little fast. Maybe you want to look for a live betting opportunity, especially after those first 15 plays. If Malik Murphy's able to get in the end zone, maybe you could get a better number than this. But with the wind and with Northwestern's pace, I do think that we've got great opportunities for a wonder here in Evanston.
Very, very interesting play here. Under 37.5. It's a good transition point, Chip, and we're going to get back to you with a couple more college football picks because, Danny Brasco, I'm going to you. Now, you have a UFC money line play, but before you get there, this is where the controversy kind of sets in here. But really, you're on the sharp play because when people, and I'm not going to give out the play, I'm going to let you give it out, but when people look at the Eagles and Packers and they look at these two offenses, especially how the Packers finished the season and what the Eagles added in the offseason with Saquon Barkley in the backfield, I think people are thinking, geez, a lot of points in this one. Let me go ahead and take the over. But Danny Brasco, you're on this show. You're sharp. So where are we going with this one?
You know I love me an under, Sia. While everyone's clamoring to bet overs and running to the counter saying overs are the best thing since sliced bread. I'm being the bah humbug on the other side with my under ticket. And I like the under 49.5 in this Brazil game in the Eagles taking on the Packers here in a totally new environment. I mean, you take a look at it, not only are they playing at altitude, but this is quite literally foreign territory for both teams. So I do expect offenses to get started slow because of that. I think it hinders offensive play. And on the defensive side of the ball, these are two much improved units. Both hired new defensive coordinators. The Eagles added Guru Vic Fangio, and their defensive backs were just a mess last season. Their porous secondary should be much improved right away. They look to rebuild that in the draft, adding Cooper DeJean. They got C.J. Gardner-Johnson reuniting with a gritty defensive defensive back like him to really bring that leadership back. Avonte Maddox adding some depth, and they still have really good safety. So I do think their secondary is going to get a lot better. And I think there's just a lot of hype on Jordan Love from his amazing run to end the season last year, running it up on offense, doing it to some of the best teams in the conference. I think that just that perception and that hype on him is a little too much, and giving us a 49.5 number in foreign territory in Brazil through that key number of 49, I'm forced to take a stab at the under here. Yeah, I like it, Sia. I think points will be at a premium. Oh, by the way, they also got Devin White in the linebacking corps to match with Nakobe Dean now to cover the middle of the field. So I like that. Jeff Hafley also for the Packers, new defensive coordinator, and they added Xavier McKinney, a lot of other new pieces there. I believe that they'll be much improved on the run side of the ball as well. So take a look at those two things too. Go ahead, Sia.
Before you give out the UFC pick, I do want to ask you something because there's a question in the chat that I think is kind of important, especially with what we saw yesterday. And by the way, I don't think Devin White is playing, but that you're right about the pieces that they had. I don't think he's playing tonight. I think Isaiah Rodgers might be out as well. But with that said, the under in the first half, somebody was asking about that at 24.5. Your thoughts there? If you're on the under in the game, are you also on the under in the first half?
I don't mind that because you're getting through a key number of 24 for the first half. I'm much more of a full game better there. So I do like the 49 number, but I'm not mad at that logic at all. I think if you like the under the first half makes sense as well. I think they'll go run heavy behind Saquon. That offensive line is still menacing as ever despite losing Jason Kelsey. And I think that'll chew up clock and possessions and lead to an under 49.5. So you take that for the NFL Brazil game. Now let's head to the Octagon. Don't forget, we still got fight night. And this is perhaps the most juiced play I've ever given out on the show, guys. But I'm going with the favorite, Sean Brady, in the main event. He's taking on Gilbert Durinho Burns, a veteran of the welterweight division, absolute legend jiu-jitsu player. But he's 38 years old now, guys. And Sean Brady's 7 years younger. Just the menacing grappler that can match him in the grappling department, which is a rare thing to say against Gilbert Burns. I think a lot of people that will be on the dog Burns will look at his potential striking advantage, but he's a wild striker. He needs these wild exchanges. He's not a clean tactician, and I don't think he'll be able to just pick him apart at range. I think they'll scramble, they'll clinch, and Brady will win those exchanges to end up winning as a -180 favorite and potentially get a rematch title shot against Bilal Muhammad if they can come soon for Brady. So here's my 2 picks for you guys today, under and Sean Brady.
All right, absolutely love it. Chip, I got a question for you. Somebody asked, and I don't even know if you're going to get this reference because I'm not so sure you're old enough to get this reference. Ray Brown says, Chip, are you a Folgers or Maxwell House kind of guy?
Cafe Bustelo. Come on,
you know
man.
What?
Yeah, Cafe Bustelo.
You know what's so funny?
Is a Fiorentina guy, so he knows his proper coffee. Bustelo is the play.
Yeah. I didn't even know what Bustelo was until like a year and a half ago when I started making my own espressos, and I got the ground espresso coffee or whatever you call it from that company. I didn't even know what it was. So okay, that's Bustelo. That's what you got to go with.
Lavazza action.
Lavazza's solid too. I listen. If I'm going to get some time on the mic, can I just point out why the Maestro is the Maestro? Okay, this is phenomenal. Okay, so the Maestro has identified the style of grass that they're going to have in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And he knows that that is the same style of grass that you're going to get at both Philly and Green Bay. You just don't get that kind of insight. That's so good. I mean, didn't Maestro have the coin? He knew the factory where the coin was made for the Super Bowl coin toss last February.
So.
Yeah. And it was like, we've got trends based on the makeup of the coin and the factory that it comes from. Guys, if you are not riding with SportsLine, what are you doing? Love that guy, man.
Go ahead, Brasco.
Awesome.
That's amazing stuff. The Maestro is one of a kind. Sean Wilson in the chat. Danny, what would you bet on Bulgarian fight? He's -2,500 favorite. Biggest favorite on the UFC card. He might finish that fight within half of a round. I would look for plus money odds on that fight not to make it through 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Bulgarian is going to smoke him.
Maestro is gonna Maestro, says a Reed Phillips.
Go.
Larry Turfstro says Brad Betts. And we got a treasure over here, says Ray Brown. It's true. You got to be a member of this Early Edge family and of SportsLine. And listen, if you want to make any of those bets, go to BetMGM. New BetMGM customers can sign up today and get up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Just place your first wager of at least $10, and you'll receive up to $1,500 instantly. If your bet loses with bonus code EDGE, that's bonus code EDGE, EDGE. All right, we got to get to Mike's pick. We got to get to my pick. We got a lot more to come because Chip still has to give out a couple of Saturday college football picks. What a show, folks. We're going to get more of it right after this message from our partners.
My first hot take of the year.
When Sunday football isn't enough.
Dislike that take.
Great take.
That other pregame show will put you over the top.
I'm all in. Let's go viral here.
Every Sunday, all the insight you need on CBS Sports Network.
Jeffrey Aguilar saying, what happened to the Padres last night? Shaking my head. Yeah, those are tough ones. I lost that Dodgers first 5 on the last out in the bottom of the 5th. And then, it just reminded me of how Sniper lost yesterday on the Detroit Tigers, of all teams, hitting a grand slam in the top of the 9th when they were down 3-0. All right, Mike. We are looking at the Eagles. A lot of this SportsLine crew is on the Eagles to win the NFC East. I mean, it's one of I know Danny Brasco is on it. It's a play I gave out on this show, an official play some time ago as well. It just seems like they're setting up, to do well in the NFC East, but also to be one of the top contenders in the NFC. I mean, I think it's the Niners. I think it's the Lions, the Packers, and probably the Eagles. And they are the tier that people are going to need to top. Talk to us about the Eagles tonight, though.
Yeah, I like the Eagles tonight, -2. Played this -2, -110. When I look at this matchup here, I think that the perception is these teams are kind of went in the opposite directions at the end of last season. We know the Philadelphia Eagles were awesome to start the season and really fell apart. A lot of question marks on the defensive side of the ball. And then the Packers, they played fine for the first half of the season, but really played well in the second half and made that postseason run. And frankly, we're very close to going even deeper in the playoffs. However, I still want to see just a slightly bigger sample size there because there are some changes on that team. But when I look at the Philadelphia Eagles, I love the changes that they made, not only at the offensive defensive coordinator positions, but bringing in Saquon Barkley. I will be the first to tell you that running backs simply do not matter in the NFL much. I think Saquon is the exception to that rule in this system, especially early here. And when you look at this matchup, I think Saquon's going to be involved, but I think he really frees up everyone else. I think it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Jalen Hurts. And I like the Eagles here. Again, my sim number made this -3.5, which is, I think, the number you would have seen if the Packers hadn't had that playoff run. And that's where I make this game. So I like the Eagles -2. I think both of these teams are great. We're talking legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Expect both of them to make the playoffs. Love the Eagles here in this particular spot, though. -2 made this game again up to -3.5.
Let me ask you this, and I think I know the answer to it, but Justin Walter says or asks, Mike, would you play it at -2.5 at -108?
Yeah, I would still lean there at -2.5. Yes. Yep.
All right. So here's where the controversy sets in, Mike, and perhaps you and Danny can react to this before we get to Chip's 2 college football plays that he wants to put out there. Of course, he has all kinds of plays on the Cover 3 podcast, and I got to admit, Chip, I was up late. I guess it would have been Saturday night, and you and your teammates on Cover 3 were doing that sort of live broadcast during some of the late games, recapping. So many thousands of people were watching that. It was such an engaging, entertaining, and informative show. So I know I'm going to be dialed into that this Saturday night as well. But here's the thing. I'm going with the Packers, but in a different type of way. I've got the Packers team total over 23.5. The reason all 3 of our bets can't hit, because obviously Mike and my bet can hit if it's a super high scoring game, but that means Danny Brasco's bet doesn't hit. So we can't have a clean sheet here, but I'm just going to stick to my guns here. Packers team total over 23.5. Here's the thing. I think this offense, I don't even know that I put it all on Jordan Love and how good he looked in the second half of the season. I think this Matt LaFleur offense with Jordan Love, with these receivers who are now veteran receivers to this offense and know where to be at all times, they're all healthy, and I just don't think this offense can really be stopped. I will say this. I think the Eagles can control the ball and perhaps the clock. And if they decide to utilize Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts and not necessarily pass the ball downfield on all of their drives, they could have 7-8 minute drives that really suck up a lot of clock, which really could impact the under in Danny Brasco's favor and could make my bet fail. But I really think the Packers probably chasing points here. Either way, I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to be super efficient with the ground game. He hasn't been. And I just think you can't stop Jordan Love with Jaden Reed, with a healthy Christian Watson, with Dontavian Wicks, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. I think they're going to just matriculate the ball down the field and get over this 23.5 point total. I still think the Eagles can win, but I like the Packers team total. I love this offense. And again, without Devin White and Isaiah Rodgers, this new secondary, this new DC, I don't know that this is the game for them to come together. Game 1 against the Packers. If it was game 1 against the Carolina Panthers, different story for that defense. I think this is a tough spot for them against the Packers in Brazil. Danny Brasco, real quick, love, hate. You must hate my play here because I know you're on the under.
Well, certainly a fair take. Like you're saying, a lot of new pieces. Isaiah Rodgers also out. Good point to mention that Devin White won't be there. So you wonder how Fangio's system will fare in week 1 with new personnel against Jordan Love, who's been lighting it up since, coming off of last season. I will say the perception on the Eagles, as bad as they were under Sean Desai, after firing, they were 3rd in the league in DVOA and defense a year before that. And they went to 29th. Like, it went from good to horrible. So I think they'll go back towards the middle of the pack here, and we'll see if it can come together in week 1. Like you say, you're betting against that. I think it'll show up right away. So I'm banking that it will, and it leads to an under, but we shall see how your Packers fare.
All right. Mike, your quick reaction before we get to Chip Patterson's college football picks.
Yeah, I think the Eagles defense will definitely be better this season, but I really think the offense is going to be elite. So I'm expecting this Eagles offense to be a lot like we've seen Kansas City over the last 4 years. I'm not talking necessarily big play down the field. I'm talking about being able to just milk a half a quarter on a drive that ends in a touchdown. Because again, with the tush push added with Saquon Barkley here, they're literally playing 8 yards at a time rather than playing for 10. That's how elite and dominant it should be, especially early in the season. So yeah, I like them. I do think they're going to take some time off the clock though.
Agree, and I incorporated into my argument for a reason, because I think you're right. I think this offense, and now you add Jahan Dotson for whatever that's worth, but of course Saquon Barkley, no Jason Kelsey, but still a good offensive line. I hear you on the Eagles in terms of their success in 2024. All right, Chip. Interesting plays here. We've got a couple of plays, including a team total, and what I love about your team total is it's on a team that you wouldn't think you'd have an over on, but here you are. What's the play? What's play number one? Iowa State.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that, right? I mean, after all, Iowa State, it's gone under, 17-2. Just go in there and bet the under. Well, that's what they want you to think, okay? But I'm an independent thinker, okay? I do my own research, okay? And what I know is the new Tim Lester offense has unlocked things in Iowa's offense that we have not seen literally in years. So you go back to the 2022 season. Do you know how many wide receivers caught touchdown passes the entire 2022 season? 2. All season long, just 2 touchdown receptions by wide receivers. Everything else was to tight ends or running backs. Last season, 3 touchdowns caught by wide receivers. And then in that win against Illinois State, look, the Redbirds are no pushover. They are an FCS team that's built well at the line of scrimmage. 3 touchdowns caught by wide receivers. They got a freshman who's stepping up. They got players that are ready to go. This offense has shifts and motions. And look, I know Kirk Ferentz might need some Dramamine for the way that this new offense moves around a lot more than he might like, but this thing is for real. And when we look at Iowa State was already a little bit thin at the linebacker position. Then in Iowa State's opener against North Dakota, they lose, bam, another linebacker to an injury. I think they're good against the defensive line, but as you start to get further back in the defense, I think the Cyclones can be had. So we are going to go Iowa team total over 18.5. I think they can get us to 20 or 21, even in a series that has historically been very low scoring. We believe in the offensive revolution going on there with the Hawkeyes. And then 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, it's going to be a lesson, okay? And this lesson is going to be learned by the Baylor Bears, because since the start of the 2018 season, Utah is 23-13 against the spread at home. You think about big home field advantages, and all the normies will tell you about Death Valley down in Baton Rouge. And I agree. It's a very, very hard place to play. But what you don't hear a lot is Rice-Eccles Stadium, because you're about halfway up a mountain. You're dealing with elevation. You're dealing with the physical brutality of a Kyle Whittingham team that wants to beat you up at both lines of scrimmage. Cam Rising is healthy again. I mean, this is a team that since the start of 2018 has covered at home 63.9% of the time, beating opponents by 20 points per game and covering the spread by 4.9 points per game. Look, you're going to talk about how all these new Big 12 teams got to learn how to get all through those small, tiny towns in Texas. Well, all those old Big 12 teams, they got to learn about the pain that's waiting for them there in Salt Lake City. I like Utah to put the hammer down on Baylor. Let's go Utes.
Utah over Baylor, and a revolution, an offensive revolution for Iowa. I can't wait to see that. That game's got a lot of takes. Real quick, I know, Chip, a lot of people are on Iowa money line. Any thoughts on that? I know you're on the team total. Do you lean Iowa's way to win that game? Cover?
Yeah, I do. I've got, like at 2.5. I loved it. I think we talked about that on Wednesday. It's up to 3. If it gets to 3.5, now I do still think this is not going to be like a super high scoring game. So our key numbers are going to be key there. So 2.5 and 3, I think are green light go for me. If it gets to 3.5 or 4, maybe not as much. I do believe Iowa's the better football team. And I am a little bit concerned about this one piece. And that is that Nathan Shieldhouse, who was the offensive coordinator for Iowa State last year and really helped Rocco Becht, the Cyclones quarterback, have a really good debut. No, Shieldhouse is gone. He's off to the NFL right now. And so we were never going to see a lot, going up against North Dakota. They're going to keep that spring game playbook, as I like to say, very, very bland. But I wonder if they've had a downgraded offensive coordinator with the loss of Shieldhouse, who I thought did a very good job with that group last year. So that is one thing I'm keeping an eye on, something to watch. If Iowa State is getting bottled up early, then it could be an even bigger win for the Hawkeyes.
Mike, I believe you were on that college football. I should say you are on that college football show as well. I can't remember because I did watch the show. Did you have a lean on Iowa State, or just stay away from that one?
Yeah, Iowa at 2 or 2.5 would not lay the full 3, though. I think the game ultimately becomes pretty competitive, but the other play that I leaned there was the first half team total over for Iowa. You can find that at 9 or 9.5. I think they get a touchdown and a field goal in the opening half.
And ladies and gentlemen, you can find all of these picks on a lot of our different shows, but the full complement of picks is on SportsLine. Don't forget, go to sportsline.com/join. You type in the promo code winners, you get 60% off the annual plan. Now is the time to do it. We're going into college football, to the NFL. We got NBA in 6 weeks. And of course, Major League Baseball, still plenty of time for that, let alone soccer and all of the other sports, WNBA included. So go to sportsline.com/join, type in the promo code winners. You get 60% off the annual plan. All our picks, all our analysis, all our simulations, DFS plays. Speaking of DFS, Reed Phillips says, got to check out the Fantasy Football Today DFS podcast with Sia and M2 and, of course, Meg Schaup. It's a must-watch twice, he says. Once to take it in and a second to adjust those rosters. Make sure you are subscribed to that podcast on Apple or Spotify. It was so good yesterday. A game-by-game DFS breakdown. We talked a lot of props and a lot of just regular redraft fantasy concepts as well every single Thursday at 11 o'clock. All right, let's take a look at the recap screen before we get out of here. I'm on a controversial play here, a little contrarian play, at least to this group. Packers team total over 23.5 at -120. Mike McClure's on the Eagles -2. Brasco, Eagles, Packers under 49.5 at -110. And UFC Fight Night, Sean Brady, moneyline -180. Chip Patterson tonight, Duke Northwestern under 37.5. And Saturday, Iowa, team total over 18.5. And Utah -14.5. What a great show. These Friday shows are amazing. Frankly, all the shows are amazing. Don't forget, we've got programming today at 5 o'clock with the prop show. We got the 7:15 primetime kickoff for this game that we've been talking a lot about, Packers and Eagles in Brazil. So much content coming your way. Very, very excited. Thank you for being involved in the chat. Brad Betts, Brad Morris, Mark, Danny Brasco, and Numbers Edge, a.k.a. Mike McClure, dropping knowledge as we speak in there. Dano saying, smash the like. Appreciate all the involvement, folks. Let's have a great and positive Friday. Let's cash some tickets, and we'll see you on the next one. On behalf of Mike McClure, Danny Brasco, Chip Patterson, Jake the Snake on the ones and twos, I'm the Counselor of Cash. This is the Early Edge, and we rest our case.